A dead body that fooled Adolf Hitler. A billion-dollar mission to steal a nuclear submarine from the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. And a spy who climbed so high inside an enemy government that he was almost appointed Minister of Defense. These might sound like scenes from a Hollywood thriller, but every one of them actually happened. Hidden behind the headlines of wars and political conflicts is another battlefield most people never see. A battlefield of deception, secrets, and silent wars, fought not with bombs, but with information. Welcome to the Spies Playbook, where we uncover real intelligence operations that changed history. Because sometimes the most powerful weapon in war isn't an army, it's a lie. Our story begins in 1943 during World War II. Europe is in chaos. Nazi Germany controls vast territories, and the Allied powers are desperately searching for a way to strike back. The Allies are planning a massive invasion of Sicily, an island that acts as the gateway to mainland Italy, and whoever controls Sicily controls access to southern Europe. But there is a massive problem. The Germans know this too. Sicily is heavily fortified with thousands of soldiers, artillery batteries, minefields, and coastal defenses ready for an invasion. If Allied forces attack directly, the casualties could be catastrophic. British intelligence realizes they need something more powerful than weapons. They need deception. The question becomes simple but dangerous. What if they could convince the Germans that the invasion would happen somewhere completely different? Not Sicily, but somewhere else entirely. But fooling German intelligence was not easy. They were experienced, suspicious, and extremely cautious. A simple fake message would never work. The deception had to feel completely real. That is when British intelligence officers came up with one of the strangest ideas in military history. The plan required a dead body. British intelligence obtained the corpse of a recently deceased homeless man named Glyndwr Michael. During his life, he had been invisible to the world, a man few people even noticed, but after his death, he would become one of the most important figures in a secret operation that could determine the outcome of a war. The body was given a new identity, Major William Martin of the Royal Marines. But this identity was not just a name. It was a complete life story. Intelligence officers carefully created personal details to make him believable. His uniform was authentic. His pockets contained everyday items like theater tickets, a receipt for a diamond engagement ring, personal letters, and photographs of a fictional fiancée named Pam. Every item was carefully designed to convince anyone who examined them that Major Martin had been a real person with a real life. But the most important item was a locked briefcase chained to his wrist. Inside were secret military documents, letters between British commanders discussing a supposed Allied plan to invade Greece and Sardinia, not Sicily. If German intelligence believed these documents, they would move their troops away from Sicily, leaving the island vulnerable. But for the deception to work, the body had to be discovered in the right place. In April 1943, a British submarine quietly surfaced off the coast of Spain. Spain was officially neutral during the war, but German agents operated freely there. If Spanish authorities discovered the body, the documents would almost certainly reach German intelligence. The crew carefully prepared the body of Major William Martin, attached the briefcase, and released him into the ocean. The body drifted slowly toward the Spanish coast, and then the waiting began. Days passed, then weeks. British intelligence officers anxiously waited for any sign that the plan had worked. If the Germans realized the documents were fake, the entire Allied invasion strategy could collapse. Finally, the news arrived. Spanish fishermen discovered the body floating near the coast. Authorities recovered the documents, and exactly as British intelligence had predicted, they quietly passed them to German agents. German analysts studied the documents carefully. Everything seemed real. The letters looked authentic, the personal items felt natural, and nothing suggested a trap. Eventually, the information reached Adolf Hitler himself, and he believed it completely. German command ordered several divisions to move away from Sicily and reinforce Greece and Sardinia. The deception had worked. When Allied forces invaded Sicily in July 1943, they encountered far less resistance than expected. Thousands of lives were saved because of one carefully constructed lie carried by a dead man. The mission became known as Operation Mincemeat, and it remains one of the most brilliant deception operations ever executed in warfare. But as incredible as this story sounds, the next operation would take espionage to an entirely different level 3 miles beneath the ocean. 2 decades later, the world had changed. The war against Nazi Germany was over, but a new conflict had begun: the Cold War. Unlike previous wars, the Cold War was fought mostly in shadows where intelligence, surveillance, and secret technology became the most powerful weapons. In 1968, a Soviet ballistic missile submarine known as K-129 mysteriously disappeared in the Pacific Ocean. The submarine carried nuclear missiles, encryption codebooks, and highly classified military technology. Losing such a vessel was a disaster for the Soviet Union. They launched a massive search operation, sending ships and aircraft across thousands of miles of ocean, but they could not find it. What the Soviets did not know was that the United States had already located the wreck using a sophisticated underwater surveillance system designed to detect submarine activity. The wreck of K-129 lay nearly 3 miles beneath the ocean surface. Inside it were secrets that could reveal critical information about Soviet nuclear capabilities. But recovering it seemed impossible. No one had ever attempted to lift an object that large from such extreme depths. The CIA proposed a daring solution, one that sounded almost like science fiction. To hide the mission, they created a perfect cover story involving the eccentric billionaire Howard Hughes. Hughes publicly announced he was funding a revolutionary deep-sea mining ship designed to collect rare minerals from the ocean floor. The world believed the story. Newspapers reported on the ambitious mining project. But the ship's true mission was completely different. The vessel, called the Glomar Explorer, secretly contained an enormous mechanical claw capable of descending miles beneath the ocean. Its real purpose was to grab the sunken Soviet submarine and lift it into a hidden chamber inside the ship where no one could see it. The mission was called Project Azorian. In 1974, the Glomar Explorer sailed into the Pacific Ocean and positioned itself above the wreck site. Engineers slowly lowered the massive claw into the darkness of the ocean depths. The operation required incredible precision because the deeper the claw descended, the greater the crushing pressure of the ocean above. Hours passed as the claw finally reached the seafloor and positioned itself around the submarine wreck. Slowly, the lifting process began. For a moment, it seemed impossible, but the claw successfully grabbed the submarine and began raising it toward the surface. Then disaster struck. The submarine's hull had weakened after years under extreme pressure. Halfway through the lift, the structure fractured and a large section of the submarine broke away, plunging back into the darkness of the abyss. Years of preparation seemed to collapse in seconds, yet the mission was not a total failure. The forward section of the submarine remained inside the claw and was successfully brought aboard the Glomar Explorer, giving American intelligence valuable insights into Soviet submarine design and technology. The operation proved that nations were willing to spend hundreds of millions of dollars and attempt engineering feats never before imagined, simply to obtain secrets. But technology is not always the most powerful intelligence tool. Sometimes the most valuable weapon is a single human being, and few spies in history demonstrated this better than Eli Cohen. In the early 1960s, tensions between Israel and Syria were escalating rapidly, and Israel desperately needed intelligence from deep inside the Syrian government, information that satellites or intercepted messages could never provide. That is when the Israeli intelligence agency, Mossad, recruited Eli Cohen for one of the most dangerous espionage missions ever attempted. Cohen adopted a new identity, Kamal Amin Thabit, a wealthy Syrian businessman who had supposedly made his fortune in Argentina. Before entering Syria, he first moved to Buenos Aires, where he slowly built connections within the Syrian expatriate community, attending parties, forming friendships, and gaining the trust of influential Syrians who believed he was a patriotic supporter of their country. Eventually, those connections allowed him to travel to Damascus with powerful letters of introduction. Once inside Syria, Cohen's charm and intelligence helped him rise quickly through elite circles. He hosted lavish parties attended by high-ranking military officers and government officials. Alcohol flowed freely and conversations became relaxed, and while others talked carelessly, Cohen listened carefully. Every detail mattered: military plans, troop deployments, defensive strategies, and all of it was secretly transmitted back to Israel. His infiltration was so successful that he eventually gained access to some of the most sensitive military locations in Syria and was even considered for the position of Deputy Minister of Defense. Imagine the implications of that. A spy almost running the defense ministry of the country he was secretly betraying. One of his most famous intelligence contributions came during a visit to Syrian defensive positions on the Golan Heights. The region contained heavily fortified bunkers and artillery placements designed to repel an Israeli invasion. While touring the positions, Cohen made a simple suggestion. Soldiers working under the intense Middle Eastern sun needed shade, so why not plant trees near the bunkers? The idea sounded harmless and Syrian commanders agreed. Trees were planted across the defensive positions. Years later, when the Six-Day War erupted, those trees became perfect markers for Israeli pilots. Each cluster of trees revealed the location of hidden Syrian bunkers, allowing Israeli forces to identify and destroy many of those positions with remarkable precision. But living as a double agent is extremely dangerous. Eventually, Syrian counterintelligence detected unusual radio transmissions within Damascus. Using advanced Soviet signal tracking equipment, they narrowed down the source of the transmissions to a specific neighborhood. One morning, security forces surrounded Cohen's apartment and burst inside while he was transmitting a coded message to Israel. His cover was destroyed instantly. Cohen was arrested, interrogated, and eventually sentenced to death. Despite international appeals for mercy, he was publicly executed in Damascus in 1965, yet the intelligence he provided had already reshaped the strategic balance between Israel and its enemies, and he remains one of the most famous spies in modern history. These stories, from a dead body that fooled Hitler to a billion-dollar mission beneath the ocean, and a spy who infiltrated the highest levels of an enemy government, reveal something profound about the hidden world of espionage. History is not shaped only by armies, tanks, and battles. Sometimes it is shaped by a single lie carried by a drifting body. Sometimes by an impossible engineering mission 3 miles beneath the sea. And sometimes by a single individual willing to risk everything while living a double life. And even today, the world of espionage continues quietly behind the scenes. Intelligence agencies across the globe conduct covert operations, monitor communications, develop advanced surveillance technologies, and recruit agents capable of operating in the shadows for years without recognition. Modern espionage now includes cyber warfare, satellite intelligence, artificial intelligence analysis, and digital infiltration of secure networks. Yet the core principles remain exactly the same as they were decades ago: deception, patience, secrecy, and information. Governments understand that knowing an enemy's intentions can be just as powerful as defeating them in battle. That is why intelligence gathering remains one of the most important elements of national security. Somewhere in the world right now, analysts are studying intercepted signals. Engineers are designing new surveillance systems, and undercover agents are building new identities that may take years to fully develop. Decades from now, historians may reveal the details of operations happening today, stories of deception, courage, and sacrifice, just as unbelievable as the ones we explored here. Because history is not only written by generals and politicians. Sometimes it is written by people whose names remain hidden for years, people who operate quietly in the shadows carrying secrets that could reshape the future. The Spies playbook is not written with ink. It is written with courage, deception, patience, and sometimes the ultimate sacrifice, and the shadows of history are still full of secrets waiting to be uncovered. If you enjoyed this deep dive into real espionage missions, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story hidden inside the secret world of intelligence.